parents, for all those that are suffering from the COVID virus, and any personal intentions you might have. Thank you very much. We have 3 items on the agenda under subdivision and land development. But first, we have consideration of the October 21st, 2020 Planning Commission meeting minutes. Commissioners, you have copies of those minutes. You have had an opportunity to review the minutes. I would entertain a motion.
I'll make that motion.
A motion to approve. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Moved and second. Any comments or questions? Hearing none. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Thank you. It's unanimous. Our first applicant under the subdivision land development is Adrian Ordonez, and I hope I said that properly. 1800 Edgeley Road, Levittown. Tax parcel number 5-79-27, requesting preliminary and final subdivision approval for the above noted location in an R-2 residential zone district of Bristol Township. Good evening, sir.
Good evening. Tonight we have
Well, first I'm going to ask you to identify yourself, please.
I am John Richardson.
And is the microphone light green?
It is red.
Push it.
Yeah.
Still red. Shorter? Oh, there it goes. John Richardson, and I'm with Dumac Engineering. I'm representing the owner and applicant. And tonight we have a minor subdivision. It's a 2-lot proposed subdivision. The applicant currently lives on the property. The property is located between Edgeley and Grebe Avenue, and it's just slightly less than a half an acre. It's essentially half an acre. And the applicant and owner would like to subdivide the property, not quite in half. There's some existing structures in the backyard that we're giving a little bit of room to. But both lots are in conformance. There's really no zoning issues. The one lot will be slightly less than a quarter acre. The other lot will be slightly more than a quarter acre. The house that we show here is a conceptual house. Really, the owner doesn't plan on building any structure at this time, but we did show a conceptual house, and we'll provide conceptual stormwater for that house. The existing drainage in the area is, generally speaking, as the way it's orientated on the screen here. It goes from the top to the bottom, parallel kind of both streets. We've submitted to the township. We've gotten a review letter from the township engineer. I can go through that letter if you guys wish, but essentially it's all will complies. We asked for several waivers. I don't believe the township engineer really weighed in on any of the waivers particularly.
And John, you can go through the waiver list.
Okay.
You've already stated that you will comply with the rest of the Gilmore letter.
Correct. The first waiver is from section 177-35A. We've actually tied them these all together. It's 135A, 43, 45, 66, and 67. It's all in regard to road information. So we're requesting a waiver to not have to provide curbs and sidewalks on either street and to allow the existing cartway widths to remain on both streets. In the area of the subdivision, there's no curbs or sidewalks in the area, and the streets are relatively consistent for the lengths in either direction. For a little bit from our property, they don't vary dramatically. It wouldn't really make sense to do any of those work. We're asking for a waiver from section 177-48D3 in regards to grading within 5 feet of the property line or right-of-way. We're proposing to grade across the right-of-way. That way the grade is consistent between the site and the right-of-way. And due to how close some of the features are to the property line, we will be grading within 5 feet of the side property lines too. Additionally, the created property line, which I don't think it applies, but obviously we will have some grading within 5 feet of the created property line. We're requesting a waiver from 177-93A1. It's in regard to plan scale. Our plan's currently at 20 scale. The ordinance requires 50 or 100 scale, so we're actually above and beyond the ordinance requirement. The next waiver is 177-93C3. It's regards to existing features. As part of the plan set, we provide an aerial photograph, which shows a lot of the information, maybe not in terms of the actual survey, but it does portray a lot of the information that the ordinance would like. And as a condition of that waiver, we will provide any specific information that might be requested by the township engineer. And then the final waiver is 3C6. And the current plan is created using 1-foot contour interval. The ordinance specifies either a 2 or 5-foot contour interval. So our plan is actually above and beyond the ordinance requirements.
Okay, thank you.
Is there any
John.
questions?
Thank you, John. Do I have any questions from the commission? Kirk?
I just had one question. You had said that the applicant's not intending on building the house, but would sell it for someone else to build on it. I can't recall the history of it, but I think there was an original plan submitted and it indicated that. I'm not sure if your plan indicates that.
It does not. You guys had issued a review letter on the previous design firm's plan, and most of the comments revolved around you want some feature shown.
Right, and which you've done, and which we would require. Can we agree to add a comment at minimum on the plan? Perhaps the solicitor has a different path to go about this, but because it's part of a subdivision land development, then there would be normally agreements, developer agreements, financial security escrow agreements that would take place, to which your client wouldn't want to enter into because there's no intent in building the improvements that are required. But a note on the plan that would defer those agreements and requirements of the subdivision ordinance until such time as the issuance of the building permit from the future
I think
buyer.
that makes sense. I'm sure my client would agree to that. So there's certain costs associated. You have to put up monies to ensure that you build it as it's shown on the plan, essentially. Yeah. And he's saying that he would like, the township engineer saying he would like to defer that you have to put up that money until a time where an actual building permit is. Yeah, I think we would definitely agree to that.
Okay,
Thank you, Kirk.
thank you.
Bob, do you have anything? Thank you. Anyone in the audience have any questions, comments? Okay, hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
All right, I'll make a motion to recommend to council to approve preliminary and final subdivision at the property located at 1800 Edgeley Road, Levittown, tax parcel number 5-79-27 in an R2 residential zone district of Bristol Township, as well as the letter dated November 12th, 2020 by Gilmore Associates that everything is will comply other than the waivers we just spoke of.
Correct.
And the attachment.
Yes, and the attachment that,
Which would be to defer the required agreements until such time as the issuance of a building permit.
Understood? Agree to that.
I have a motion, do I have a second?
I'll second that motion.
It's been moved and second. Any comments or questions on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. Good luck, gentlemen.
Thank you very much.
Would you be so kind to send the school board to the
Sure, absolutely.
next group in, please? That was good. Well, good evening, everyone. And welcome. I'm going to ask you to kindly turn off your cell phones or put them on vibrate, please. Thank you. Our next item on the agenda is the Bristol Township School District, 5 Blue Lake Road, Levittown, requesting preliminary and final subdivision/land development approval in order to build additions to the existing middle school, as well as proposed site improvements on a property located at 6401-6501 Mill Creek Road, Levittown. Tax parcel number 5-37-517 and 5-37-569 in an R3 residential zone district of Bristol Township. And good evening, sir.
Good evening. Is it okay to take my mask off?
Yes, you may, and make sure you push the buttons so the green light's on so we can hear you. And also, please identify yourself, sir.
Sure. I'm Chris Jensen. I'm with T&M Associates, the engineer for the school district on this project.
Good evening, Chris.
Good evening. I'm here also tonight with Dr. Garens, Josh Schweigert from the school district, Dave Schrader, Eric Weiss, Dan D'Amico from Schrader Group Architects, as well as Mark Roth from McMahon Associates. So I thought maybe I'd go through and describe the existing conditions, what we're proposing, and turn it over to Dan D'Amico from Schrader Group to talk a little bit about the building that's being proposed, and then maybe just go through the Kurt's letter and any questions you might have about that, if that sounds like a good plan.
Well, actually, we can just start off with the Gilmore and Associates letter.
Okay, that's fine.
And as far as the letter goes, this commission has reviewed this letter along with the accompanying documents, and we'll probably have some questions about that. And we're also going to address, first, we want to address the waiver list.
Sure. Would you like to go through them one by one?
Yes, you, please.
Okay. So the first waiver, would you like me to cite each section or just talk about?
For the record, yes, please.
For the record, okay. So the first waiver we are requesting is from section 177-14E, and it's to allow a preliminary/final submission in lieu of separate preliminary and final submissions. And the reason for this is to increase the efficiency of the approval process for this project, given the nature of the project being a renovation and addition project to an existing facility. The second waiver is a waiver from section 177-35A to allow that the cartway width of Mill Creek Road remain as it is in its existing condition. The reason for this waiver is that there are no substantial changes proposed to Mill Creek Road in front of the Ben Franklin School. The cartway width matches the cartway width in front of the relatively newly developed Emerson Elementary School, and that the traffic study for the project concludes that no roadway improvements are required. The third waiver is from section 177-40A and 177-41S, and this was specific to driveway pavement specifications, and we had commissioned a geotechnical engineer to study the soils on the site and do a specific analysis for the pavement section to optimize the design for that section based on the site location, and that was done, and the results of that recommendation were used to propose the section that is in slight difference to what the township standard detail requires.
And Chris, thank you. While you're on this particular one, I have
Sure.
a question myself. It starts off with actually to allow design for driveway pavement other than the township standard specification. And I'm curious on why you're not using the township specification.
Well, we will often do a study on a site-specific basis to determine what would be the optimal design, both for a heavy-duty and light-duty application. In the case that the site-specific conditions would allow for a lesser pavement for efficiency, given the loading over time that will require that will happen, and we also want to study in case there's a need for a thicker section than what the township would require, so that the owner doesn't run into a situation later during the life of the project where the pavement would deteriorate. So I would say half the time the results show that there's the opportunity for a lesser section, and the other half, and oftentimes there might be a suggestion and recommendation for actually a more substantial section than what the township requires. And in that case, we don't necessarily always need a waiver if it's thicker, but in this case, given that it's a lesser section slightly, we did ask for that waiver.
Okay, and that does have me puzzled, because I would think the township would make sure that with the specifications that they put in place, that would address all those issues and you wouldn't have these problems.
It's really dependent on soils and the constitution of the soils in any one particular area, and it's very much site dependent, locally dependent on, they do testing, what's called a California bearing ratio test, where they take buckets of soil samples on the site and run it through the laboratory to understand the different materials that are in the soil, how much clay is in the soil, things of that nature. And that's what's the basis for those studies and those recommendations.
Okay, thank you.
Number 4 waiver is from section 177-40F to allow less than a 25-foot curb radius at one of the driveways. We are proposing a 15-foot radius on one side of the west side of the one-way site ingress, and this does not restrict or impede eastbound or westbound traffic, or the way, I guess the site is, Mill Creek Road runs northeast, southwest, so it doesn't restrict movements in either direction turning into that specific access point. And we are designing it that way because then the pedestrian crossing of that access is better aligned in terms of a curb ramp, and it's a lesser distance for that person to walk across the access, creating a safer condition. We could we could round it off and make it a wider radius, but it's not, we don't think it's necessary. So we're asking for that waiver. Number 5 is a waiver from section 177-41P to allow more than 20 parking spaces or 180 feet in a continuous row without a traffic island. And the reason we're asking for this is because although we're adding quite a substantial amount of green space to the parking lot that's out there today, right out today it's really the proverbial sea of asphalt, if you will, out there. There's no green at all. So we're adding a lot of green, but yet along the western boundary of the parking lot, and I can point out the location, we exceed the 180-foot dimension along that edge. So we're asking for that waiver for that reason. And again, we're adding we're adding quite a bit of green that is not there today. All of this green that you see here is not all these islands. They are not there today. It's just one large continuous piece of asphalt out there today. Excuse me. The next waiver is from section 177-41Q And it's to allow for less than 2 trees to be provided for every 10 parking spaces. Excuse me. And again, it's a similar reason for that, because we are adding a substantial amount of green. The green that we are adding does not allow for the amount of trees that would necessarily be required if you were building a new parking lot from scratch. Yet we're adding all this new green, and we are adding trees to all the green areas. It just, the calculation doesn't show that we're meeting that requirement exactly. But the landscape plan, you'll notice it's a significant number of new plantings, trees, shrubs, and the like that are adequate and appropriate for the design.
I noticed, Chris, in response to that particular waiver request, you respond by additional trees have been added to the resubmitted plan set as compared to the initial submission. But it doesn't tell me how many more trees were added to it. I don't know how many trees they needed in the first place.
Right, so the initial Gilmore and Associates review letter had a request that some additional trees be planted in this large green space that we added to the existing parking lot. They thought that there was some additional space available for some more trees. We agreed, and we placed those trees in that area. I don't recall the exact number. I believe it was on the order of approximately five or six additional trees. So that statement is with respect to our original submission versus this is already our second submission to the township. The next waiver is from section 177-48D5, and that's to allow for grading within 5 feet of the property line. The reason for this request is to facilitate some grading specifically along this property line here and along this line here. It's already a somewhat wet area back in that zone, and the grading that we're proposing is improving the flow of water via the swales that are here to get to what is an existing head wall at this location. And that grading requires that we get within 5 feet of the property line. The school district already owns this piece of land adjacent to Green Lynn Drive, and the grading that we're talking about is really quite insignificant. It's not severe in nature. These are slight swales, but we would, to create the best condition for drainage, we think it's appropriate to take it to the property line. Next waiver is from section 177-51A, and that would be to allow for a reduced quantity of required street trees. And the number of street trees is a significant improvement to what is out there today, which are really, there are no street trees along the frontage in front of Ben Franklin today. We're proposing 16 new trees, and the landscape plan you will see that they're spaced appropriately based on general standard practice for planting design along the road there.
And Chris, what was the original amount of trees that they were asking for?
The original amount that they were asking for, very, very good question. I do have the full plan set on that thumb drive too, if we need to pull it up, but I think it fell short by a few trees again, along there.
Okay, so I would ask you this question. The fact that you're requesting this waiver and as the way you've put your plans together, and you're saying you think that's and you agree, it's a significant improvement to the existing condition, although it doesn't reach the threshold of where we're looking to go. Would your client consider a fee in lieu of for the trees that are not being put in?
I think that or potentially finding alternative locations on the site for said trees, that might be appropriate, or a fee in lieu for those specific trees. I can imagine the number is not very extreme for that cost, so I would think that would be appropriate.
Okay, so as understanding your response, you're saying that your client may reconsider putting trees elsewhere on the property, or if not, the possible fee of lieu of.
Sure, I think that's reasonable.
Thank you.
The next waiver is from section 177-91A1 and 177-92A1 to allow the plans to be drawn at a different scale than what's required in the ordinance, and we ask for this to improve the plan clarity and readability. The next section is 177-91C3 and 177-92C3 regarding the requirement to show existing features within 200 feet of any part of the tract on the plans. And we show what we believe to be the significant features surrounding the site that, and going to the full 200 feet would be a hardship in terms of providing all that additional survey when it's not really necessary for what the project entails. Now, that was the end of the waivers from the subdivision and land development ordinance. We are asking for some waivers from the stormwater management ordinance as well. The first is a waiver from section 173-12A1C, requiring infiltration BMPs to dewater within 96 hours. We are proposing that they dewater within 72 hours. And the reason for this is that these basins are designed using what's called the managed release concept. We already have our NPDS permit from the county, and in accordance with their design guidance, the 72-hour criteria is what we used for that purpose. The next waiver is from 173-12A2A regarding the infiltration volume requirements. And we note that the entire site was comprehensively evaluated for infiltration capability, and most of the area had limitations. So infiltration to the maximum extent practical is proposed, with one facility adjacent to the proposed addition to the building here. There's a small infiltration facility proposed there, and the balance of what's required for infiltration is provided in these MRC basins that I mentioned, the managed release basins, which slowly release the stormwater mimicking infiltration. The next is a waiver from 173-15G2 regarding downstream hydraulic capacity analysis. Our runoff rates in the proposed condition are less than pre-development for all the study points. Our study points are at this corner that I mentioned earlier. There's a head wall, and there's also a discharge at the northern portion of the site. And so the study points that would be required to do this analysis are would be somewhat of a significant distance away, and given that we're reducing the rate from the site, it's my understanding that the downstream facilities have to be able to convey a 25-year increase, but we're not increasing anyway. So we're asking for that waiver as to not have to do that study. The next is a waiver from section 173-16B to allow less than 1 foot of freeboard in the basin spillways. This is a typical waiver we'll often ask for when we have a relatively flat site. This site is flat, and due to that reason, we are asking for less than what is the 1 foot freeboard. Currently, there is no stormwater management at all on this site, so the fact that we're introducing so much stormwater management onto the site is going to be a significant improvement. Next is a waiver from 173-16E, and this is regarding the design criteria for stormwater conveyance. And the ordinance states that storm sewers must be able to convey runoff from a 100-year design storm without surcharging inlets where appropriate. And we have a limited number of inlets that during a 100-year storm would surcharge. And again, right now, the storm sewers that are out in the athletic area where these inlets are located, there really are no storm sewer systems out there today. So to have, during a 100-year very infrequent event, have some surcharge at an inlet, whereas today there's no collection at all, and there won't be people out there playing sports during those events, we think it's appropriate rather than increase the size of the pipes to be larger than what they would have to be. Finally, the waiver, the last waiver is from 173-17D, and that's to utilize the methodology called the USDA TR55 method for stormwater calculations, conveyance calculations in lieu of the PennDOT methodology. And this would be so that our stormwater calcs for conveyance and for the overall modeling of the basins is consistent, and it is typically, and in this case, is also more conservative than the PennDOT anyway. So we are asking for that waiver as well.
Thank you, Chris.
Yes.
Okay. Is there anything else that you would like to present?
Just if there are any specific questions relative to the Gilmore and Associates letter. I know there were, we mentioned the pavement design waiver, and the Gilmore letter currently stipulates that they do not support this waiver as currently presented, and we intend to work with Kurt and his team to get the information, and should the information prove that unsatisfactory in terms of the efficiency of the section, we would defer to the township standard for the pavement. And otherwise, all the other comments in the Gilmore letter are will comply nature. So we are prepared tonight, if you would be ready to request a recommendation to go before council.
Thank you, Chris.
Sure.
Commission, do you have any questions?
Oh, I do have a question that was brought up before we came out here tonight about left turning lanes. And I'd like to defer to Kurt on that, because I'm not sure exactly how to address the question.
Yeah, Mr. Jensen, you indicated that the traffic study says that there's no roadway improvements required. Is that accurate?
That's my that's what I stated. Yeah, and that's my understanding. I do have Mark Roth here too from McMahon Associates to confirm or verify that.
Because we are, obviously, we're not the traffic engineer for the township. Pannoni Associates is. They're not here represented this evening, but I did speak with Matt Johnston from Pannoni yesterday, late afternoon, and he had indicated that he spoke to the school district's traffic engineer from McMahon, and they had discussed that the left turn lanes were warranted and that there was some back and forth on the limits and extent of those left turn lanes. And it was our understanding that there was an agreement that the school district would be in agreement that they're needed and would comply with putting them in at that reduced extent that was discussed.
Well, and you're correct, there was a discussion yesterday, and there was an original comment by Pannoni regarding the request for turn lanes along Mill Creek Road, actually all at every access point. And our contention is that those turn lanes are not necessary, despite there being a marginal requirement or marginal warrant for them. And those discussions are still actively ongoing in terms of what might be necessary out there, if any, turn lanes. And so in terms of complying or committing to a turn lane at this point, the district is not prepared to do that. However, we are still working with Pannoni actively to resolve their comments. And as you mentioned, there have been discussions about the various extent that might be necessary should should the data prove it to be required.
So there were only two comments that I had after the presentation. The first was about the pavement thicknesses and the conclusion of the geotech study that, we had some comments pertaining to the findings of that study, and it sounds like you're willing to produce that information, and then upon receipt, review, and confirmation of that information, then determine whether or not the township specifications would need to be followed or that reduced section that you're proposing could be accepted. And the second one was the road improvements that we just discussed. And I can appreciate where you're coming from, but you're also asking the commission this evening to provide recommendations on the granting of associated waivers with those two items. So, not having that information and or not, if you conditionally agreed to doing the pavements sections based on findings of the report, I believe, and again, I'm not the geotech engineer, nor is your geotech engineer here. Our company reviewed the geotech engineer report, but my engineer's not here. So I don't want to speak for him and his recommendation tonight. But I guess hypothetically speaking, at best, the commission's being asked to vote on a recommendation of considering a waiver of the pavement sections subject to the results of the report and concurrence by our review, and a waiver from road improvements subject to the warrant analysis, which from what I was told yesterday afternoon, it showed that the PennDOT warrants were triggered to require left turn lanes. But the conclusion of further information provide to clarify that, and then concurrence from the township's traffic engineer, Pannoni. So, I guess if the school district's willing to agree to the pavement specification and putting in the turn lanes to the extent Pannoni recommends, then I suppose the commission could move forward this evening. But other than that, I don't have much ability to offer any other opinions because I don't have any other information.
Right, I think on the pavement, you're correct on the pavement specification that would be, I think, a reasonable approach. For the turn lanes, we are still working with Pannoni on that item. And in terms of a waiver, are you referring, Kurt, to the waiver for the cartway width? As a,
Correct.
okay. So, you know, there is a significant cost element involved with the addition of a turn lane. And again, we contend that we don't believe it's necessary for a turn lane because of what would be, and Mark Roth it could speak more about this, but the volume, the speeds that are controlled by the school zone, the fact that we are proposing a relocation of a pedestrian crossing and addition of a turn lane would introduce through traffic that potentially would be at a higher speed at a crossing. So there's pros and cons to the safety argument about the addition of a turn lane when the warrants, although acknowledged, Kurt, correctly that technically per the criteria or there is a warrant, I think there's a reasonable argument to be made that they're given the situation and the operation of this particular site that they are not necessary. And that's the contention that we're making, and that we are still working through Pinoni and are willing to make some, do some work out there. For example, I think the district, and we had spoken about this, is willing to, right now there's sidewalk on Mill Creek Road that abuts the curb. The plan does not show for it to be removed or replaced, but the district would be willing to offset that sidewalk off of the curb to provide for more of a buffer between pedestrians along Mill Creek and Mill Creek Road as an added safety measure, maybe perhaps in lieu of adding this turn lane that is still out there as a recommendation by Pinoni. So
You're saying Pinoni recommended this sidewalk be shifted back 18 inches as a buffer?
no, I am suggesting that could be perhaps an alternative, is to move the sidewalk that is abutting the curb currently on Mill Creek along the Ben Franklin frontage back off of the curb by 4 or 5 feet to give a better protective buffer between pedestrians along Mill Creek and traffic on Mill Creek. Whereas currently it's not required, and the plan does not show that to be an improvement that the district intends to provide as part of this project. So we thought that, given the nature of the marginal warrant for a turn lane and the debate over what are exactly the pros and cons for safety of adding a left turn lane versus opening up a through lane for faster speeds, which I think there's a good argument to be made that you perhaps don't want to do that where there's school crossings. A better alternative might be to leave it as it is. The operations are, per the information provided by McMahon, shown to work just fine, and maybe alternatively add to the plan an offset of the sidewalk and a reconstruction of the sidewalk that's out there that's not in the greatest of shape, to provide for some better safety for pedestrians walking along Mill Creek in lieu of a turn lane.
Thank you. I would like,
I didn't want to interrupt you. Good evening.
Good evening.
Mark Roth from McMahon Associates. We conducted the traffic impact study and prepared the traffic impact study for this project. What I wanted to share and provide a little bit of background to the board with regards to the turn lane, just so you understand the reasons for installing a turn lane, and it goes beyond the warrants that Kurt has referred to, and we're not denying the data. Warrants are one aspect of it, Okay, and what we mean by warrants, just so everybody's clear, is that warrants mean that you look at the volumes. So you look at the peak hour volume. So in the morning, the car's turning into that driveway, making a left into that driveway, and also the volumes that are on Mill Creek Road that are coming behind that traffic. Those volumes, as well as the volumes coming at you, that you want to make a left, so they're coming in the opposite direction, all of those volumes you add up and you put into these equations and charts, and it dictates whether a left turn lane is marginally warranted or, warranted to the full extent. And that's why we say marginally warranted, because they're graphs. They are, graphs that you plot the numbers on to show where it comes up. And that's why we say it's marginally warranted. But it goes beyond that, because what you want to look at is not just the volumes, but the reason why you would put a left turn lane in. And the reasons why you would put a left turn lane in, obviously, is to get the traffic that wants to make the left turn out of the through lane. Okay? And a lot of that has to do with, because if the through lane has a higher speed of traffic on it, you want to get that traffic out of the through lane so that that through traffic can move through at the same rate of speed. Not necessarily what we want in front of a school. Okay, we don't want that traffic going any faster than it may already be. The second reason is you want to get it out of the traffic because it has to wait to make that left turn into the site. That's another reason you would move it out of the way, and once again, to allow that through volume to go behind it. So in this case, we look at speeds, we look at conditions, and we look at really what we want to accomplish along, this stretch of Mill Road. And the last thing we want to do is increase speeds, along Mill Road, especially during arrivals and dismissal of school children. Number two is, if they're, in the study revealed that the traffic waiting to make that left turn was going to wait for a long period of time and it was going to disrupt the operations, and what I mean by that is level of service. You've always heard level of service on how an intersection operates. Obviously, yes, we won't want to interrupt, cause congestion well, our study shows that that's not the case. You don't need the left turn lane in order to make the intersection work better, to operate better. Okay, the only reason you would be putting it in is to allow the traffic to move quicker, in this case, not necessarily what we want. So that's why there's continued discussion between our office as well as the township's traffic engineer is like, yes, just because turn lanes are warranted doesn't always mean that turn lanes should be installed.
Well, thank you, Mark, for that
I just wanted to
Yes,
thank you for
thank you for
listening.
that explanation.
Yes.
And our commissioner does have questions. I have questions myself.
I had a question on when was the traffic study conducted?
The traffic study was conducted, I can look at my notes, but it was within the school year. So earlier this year, probably in the fall, October of this year.
When we didn't have school, so I'm just wondering where these numbers came from, because my kids go to that school right there, and yeah, I'm just wondering how.
No, that's fine, and that's a
it's
fair
a lot
question.
of traffic.
That's a fair question. And, a lot of discussions had to be had between our office and your traffic engineer with regards to the volumes that we were going to use. We had a lot of historical volumes that we had from the work that we did along Green Lane in the administration building back at that time. We have a lot of historical data and data that's available to us from the school district with regards to enrollment. The enrollment that is at the current school that this school is going to replace, the amount of bus traffic coming and going, all of those numbers were compiled to develop what would be the peak conditions for the school. all of those volumes were relayed and provided to your traffic consultant prior to us even doing any analysis, and it was confirmed by them to be actually a conservative look at what it would be. So we completely understand that, it's not normal conditions. Schools weren't in session. So we had to develop the numbers, and all of that process was transparent and approved by your engineer.
Thank you, Mark.
Yep,
You have any
you're
other
welcome.
questions?
That was a good question.
Okay. Any? Okay, so if I could speak with Chris again, please.
Absolutely.
Thank you. And again, thank you for your detailed explanation. Chris, so I'm sitting there listening to this very educational discussion going on, and I did pick up the 2 points that Kurt had pointed out. One had to do with the thickness of the, whatever you were putting down there.
The pavement sections.
Thank you very much. And I'm getting the impression that yous are certainly willing to comply with whatever the township says this is what you're going to do, that you'll be able to do that. Is that correct?
That's correct. We
Okay.
would continue, we would work to provide, there was some additional information that Kurt's office had requested. We would provide that, and pending their analysis, if it was sufficient, we would move forward with that, our proposed section. If not, we would revert to the standard township section.
Okay. And then secondly, and more importantly, as I see it, listening to Kurt, I do understand, and you even agreed that there was a conversation that was going on between Pignoni, the township engineer, and the school district engineer, and they both concurred that they saw the need for those left-hand turn lanes. And you had mentioned, and I appreciate, again, Mark's explanation about the things we need to look at when it comes to why would you put one in. And listening to my commissioner over here, his son going to the school, and that's his bottom line concern. His kid goes to the school, his child goes to the school. But you a few times during your presentation, you did mention what you call a marginal warrant. I don't quite understand what that means, marginal warrant. Either it warrants it or it doesn't warrant it. That's the way I understand it.
Well, and again, I appreciate Mark's explanation, because he explained it much better than I can with him as a traffic engineer. And I use the term marginal because of the methodology used to determine the warrants. As Mark mentioned, there's a graphical methodology, and so it's not necessarily, the answer isn't just, it is yes or no, but it's on a scale, and it's on the lower end
So I can
of the scale of why it's
So
needed.
then I can appreciate where
Yeah.
that's coming from.
Right.
Okay. I am going to request a motion on this case, on this application, sorry, on this application. And I am going to request in this motion that obviously the well complies that we're going to say that's okay. We recommend those not well complies, the waivers, with the exception of this last one concerning the left turn lanes. I would want to see the motion presented in such a fashion that there be ongoing conversation between your company and the township, Pignoni, and to come to some sort of an understanding of what the township would like you to do. If the township says, look, we prefer that these left-hand turn lanes go in. And I do understand you made the comment about there is an expense, and we understand that. We know what's been going on with the schools and everything else. We know there's the money's not just flowing freely out here. In the same respect, we do have to look at the safety of our residents and the kids going to that school. There's a lot of things that we have to take into consideration. If the motion includes the language that there be conversation that whatever the township request you do, that's what it has to be done, or I don't see where this, I'm trying to figure a way to put this in such a fashion that we can get you in front of council with a pretty much, with a positive spin on your application. Although this one particular issue is a very sticking point for this commission, and I've already heard it here. I've heard it from my township representative, and I'm going to leave it at that. So with that, I'm going to request a motion.
I'll make that motion. With regards to Bristol Township School District 5, Blue Lake Road, Levittown, requesting preliminary and final subdivision/land development approval in order to build additions to the existing middle school as well as proposed site improvements on the property located at 6401-6501 Mill Creek Road, Levittown, tax parcels numbers 5-37-517 and 5-37-569 in an R3 residential zone district of Bristol Township. With the comments in the Gilmore letter dated November 12th, 2020 being will comply. And in regards to waivers, we'd recommend to grant all with some caveats. For 177-41.p and 177-51.a pertaining to either adding additional trees to the plans or submitting a fee in lieu of. Also for the waiver requested 177-35.a, we'd request that there be ongoing work with the township engineer and the traffic engineers on both sides to work to resolve the left-hand turn lane issue, and that whatever is worked out, the township would be, satisfied. And
Did you understand the motion?
Yes.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I second.
It's been moved and second. Do I have any questions or comments about the motion?
No, I think we appreciate you listening to us in our presentation tonight, and thank you very much.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
abstain.
Aye. Majority approved to take this in front of the council with the way the motion was presented. Good luck, gentlemen.
Good luck, everybody.
Thank you all. Thank you.
Would you be so kind to send the next applicant in when you go out? Thank you very much. Have a good night. Be safe. Happy Thanksgiving to all of you.
Cleared the room for us.
Well, good evening, sir, and how are you?
Good evening.
Gentlemen, I'm going to ask you to kindly turn off your cell phones or put them on vibrate, please. Okay, our next,
There you go, they coming in? Two more out there, I don't know what they're doing.
okay.
They still chatting? Rob, you want me to set this? Yeah, let's set this, Mr. Chairman, if it's okay if we set the easel up over here and we have it on PowerPoint, if it's easier to see?
That would be, well, PowerPoint's fine. We're pretty good with that. I don't think you need an easel.
Okay, let's hold the easel. We've got old school boards, you never know when the power might go out, you know, or,
You know, in the Marine Corps, they say adapt and adjust, and that's what you gotta do sometimes.
right. We got candles and we have some boards in
There you
case the
go.
power goes out.
And for the
Okay.
two gentlemen that just came in, would you kindly make sure that your cell phones are turned off or put on vibrate, please? Our next item on our agenda is Madison New Falls Associates LLC, P.O. Box 507, Southeastern PA, requesting preliminary and final subdivision/land development approval in order to construct a grocery store on the property located at 7843 New Falls Road, Levittown. Tax parcels number 5-46-1, 5-46-2-5, and 5-46-2-1 in a C Commercial Zone District of Bristol Township. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Rob Gunlock. I'm the attorney for the applicant. Let me just make a few introductions before we get started. John McKenna in the back right corner is the principal of the applicant, Madison New Falls Associates. Chris Regal is his civil engineer, far left. Pete Spizvek is where's Pete? Right here. Pete's with traffic planning and design. He's the traffic engineer. Kyle Smythe, I say that right, Kyle?
No,
Smith, even though it's got a Y.
That's how the Irish do it.
It's Smith with a Y, my bad. And Christos, help me with your last name.
Zalibis.
Christos Salvis. These two gentlemen are with Lidl, the proposed operator of this site. So, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, we're here with respect to a land development application for what has been referred to in the township as the old Verizon building. Verizon has been there operating their wholesale operation on New Falls Road. It's just shy of 8-acre parcel. I think we could pull up, do you have a flash drive?
No.
Okay.
I'll bring up the easel.
There you go, Mr. Chairman, and we knew we had those boards for a reason. So, and,
I have a thumb drive, would that help you? Put it on that and then,
Does it have what I sent you today?
no, I don't have it downloaded.
okay, do we have copies too? Did you make some copies?
I have hard copies. I'll
Let-
give those out.
Okay, let's hand up the hard copies, and we have it on a board. It's a property there on New Falls Road that's approximately 8 acres. It's predominantly building and blacktop right now. That building has been expanded over the years. The applicant's proposing to demolish about half of the building on the Verizon building and redevelop the remainder for a Lidl market. And so what we'd like to do, Mr. Chairman, if we can, is just give you a quick overview of the site, show you the proposed rendered site plan. We have some extra copies we'll hand up so everybody can socially distance of the site plan and the renderings. Then we're going to have the Kyle Smith give a overview about Lidl, give you some information about Lidl markets, their business, their growth in the area, the type of operation they're proposing here in the community, and then we can go through the review letters, if that's okay to proceed in that manner. Okay, good. So, Chris, why don't we start off with just a short overview as to the site, what's out there today, what surrounds the property, and then we can talk about what we're proposing to redevelop on the property.
Sorry, they were all bundled in the same one. Sorry about that. Same picture.
Okay. If you hand them back, I will collate them quickly here for you. Are you guys going to swap them around?
As my granddaughter would say, sharing is caring.
Okay. really, we got two site plans there. One is a close-up, one's a little further away. Go ahead, Chris, let's just give a quick overview of the existing features.
So, like Rob said, this is a 7.5 acre site on New Falls Road. Basically, it's an existing Verizon facility. It's consisting of actually it's one building.
I'm going to, I'm sorry, what was your name again?
Chris
Chris,
Riggle.
I apologize.
Yeah,
Thank
no
you.
problem.
Chris, would you use the microphone, please?
Oh, sure. Good.
Just in case my hearing aid batteries die, I want to make sure I still hear you.
No problem. Okay, so the existing Verizon facility here on New Falls Road, it's surrounded by the north and west all by residential properties, and you can see, I have an aerial that I'll bring that up as well. Just wanted to show you these existing conditions here. New Falls Road here to the east, and then also residential across the street here. And then there's a school back here on the southwest portion here. I'll flip this over to, and you guys, we did bring these aerials here. So this is the colored rendering of the site plan here, what we're proposing.
Go ahead.
All right, I should make sure I'm keep moving here. So what we're doing is demoing approximately 25,000 square feet of this existing Verizon building here. We're proposing a 31,500 square foot Lidl grocery store. There's going to be a new signalized intersection here at New Falls Road, a right in, right out down here, kind of at the northernmost property line. The two stormwater detention basins we're proposing. One will take all the water from the existing Verizon, and then this other basin back behind the Lidl will take the water from the surface parking lot that we're proposing and the roof area from the Lidl grocery store.
Currently, there's no facilities out there. It's running uncontrolled, so we'll be controlling not only what we're proposing to redevelop, but also the existing Verizon building there as well.
Yeah, basically this site is almost 100% impervious right now between building and then parking lot. So we're adding about 2 acres of green area to the site, including all of the landscaping that we're putting around the perimeter, interior landscaping, and then street trees as well. Go ahead.
I also want to jump in and show behind the neighbors' properties here, over on the plan, you'll see an area here where they have some sheds and some other features on the Verizon property. It's a license that was granted, and we're respecting that in this plan. So those residents will continue to have the right to that 20-foot strip behind their homes. Their sheds will stay, everything they have there, we're respecting that on the plan.
Yes, yeah, there's two sheds up here, and then there's 2 other sheds right down here that back up to this Cortland Lane.
We're giving all the residents, though, the 20-foot strip back there. Make it uniform.
I do have on the thumb drive now, if you want to put it up on the main screen.
Okay.
Up to,
Sure, let's see. So, you want to, we're doing full road improvements, we're doing full sidewalk across the frontage?
Yep.
Correct?
Exactly, yeah, so it's going to be all new roadway, basically from the municipal services building down to the northern part of the site. Like I said, fully signalized intersection here, new sidewalks across the entire site. Trying to think.
Okay, did you,
yeah.
Chris, did you happen to bring your pointer with you?
My pointer?
Yeah.
No.
Like a laser pointer?
Yes.
Laser pointer.
That's all right, I just happen to have one. So we can use the screen.
Sure, okay.
And here you are.
All right, thank you.
And Chris, I want it back when you're done.
Yeah, no problem.
My cat died recently, so I don't. So yeah, this is the fully, going back a little bit, this is the intersection that we're proposing right here.
All right, I'm going to ask you to use the microphone. Thank you.
Put one thing down.
Because we have a viewing audience, and they'd like to hear you too.
All right. So this is the fully signalized intersection that we're proposing right here at Apple Tree Place. New sidewalks across the entire frontage here. This is the right in, right out that we're proposing. And that's pretty much it. We pointed out the sheds. Rob, do you have any?
No, that's the overview. We've been working with township staff for several months now on some of the details to ensure that we improved it in accordance with those discussions. But if we could have Kyle give you an overview about Lidl Market and their operations.
That'd be fine.
Okay. Kyle, why don't you take control of the microphone, and let's start out by telling everybody who you are, what you do, and a little bit about Lidl Market.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Kyle Smith. I'm actually a local guy. I grew up in Lower Orchard down the road. So it's nice to be able to bring what I think is going to be a great supermarket to the area. So a little bit about me. I'm on the real estate team. So I'm the real estate manager who selected this site. Reason we selected this site is because of its proximity to the neighborhoods. So what we like to call ourselves is a neighborhood grocer. And that's kind of why we reflect in the 31,000 square feet roughly, rather than 60, 45, 50,000 square feet like some of these bigger ones. We like to be more accessible to the homes. A quick, easy shop is what we're looking at. So you go into a Giant, you go into an Acme, 20, 30, 40 aisles. We have 6. Nice and easy, run vertically. You can shop nice and easy up and down. The way we design our stores is so you can shop in the way you would like to eat. Bread is first, deli meat second, condiments are third. You go up and down your aisles, you're out. 20 minutes in and out. The other thing we like to do is provide the freshest possible produce that we possibly can. So our deliveries, and I'll talk about that in a minute as well as far as operations, because I'm sure you're concerned about deliveries. We get 1 delivery a day, and that reflects in the quality of our produce. So everything's new every day. We like to dwindle everything down, so if you come in at 8 o'clock at night when we're starting to close up shop, they're going to be lower levels. Next morning, it's going to be nice and full again, in order to make sure that we provide the freshest groceries possible. This also reflects in our logistics. So we do things a bit differently. A traditional grocery store, you might have, I don't know, a dozen trucks coming in a day between Frito-Lay, Coca-Cola, Hers. The way we operate is we have a lot of these products in our stores. We do have about a 90% ratio of private brand to public brand, or to name brand. But what we do is in our distribution center, we repalletize everything, deliver it to our store on pallets, 1 full truck, pallets in, we unload later. But it makes it nice and easy, but we're also allowed to pass down a really nice price to the customer because we're doing all the work ourselves. We're not paying all these direct store delivery vendors in order to increase the prices, make things nice and easy from that perspective.
And so that's why you only have 1 delivery a day, because it comes in on a pallet, it gets unloaded, restocked, new truck the next day.
Yeah, and the store, in the store, you'll see things a little bit differently as well. It's not individually stacked products. It's similar to that of an Aldi. It comes in a case, we take the top off the case, put the case on the shelf. So that's also why we can do palletized loading, palletize into the store, and make things quick and easy for 1 deliveries, easy for the consumer, and we can also pass the price on.
Well, that's impressive, first of all. And I'm just curious, how many other stores do you have?
Yep, so we're actually the world's 4th largest retailer. Most people don't know it. So we're a German brand. In Germany, they're on every corner. It's like a Wawa in Germany. We're on every single corner. But we actually have 11,000 plus stores in Europe. We're in 32 separate countries. And we actually just hit, I believe, 119 stores in the U.S. today. So we opened 3 stores just today. Christos and I were in West Lancaster earlier today, so our 9th store in Pennsylvania. And we also opened Bayonne, New Jersey this morning, and Wilmington, North Carolina with our 2nd store. Okay. So we're 9 Pennsylvania strong. As of right now, the closest one would probably be Lansdale. So we have one in Lansdale, but we're looking pretty much on every corner in this area.
Why don't you tell them about the new prototype you're rolling out here for the first time?
Yep, so this will be one of our newer prototypes.
Let's put the renderings up. Can you switch over to the renderings and walk through, and you can tell them about the...
We don't have on the thumb drive.
Oh, okay, we have it on the board. There we go.
So when we first launched in the U.S., a couple years back, we launched 20 stores right away. We had about a 36,000 square foot prototype, all glass, kind of curved roof. Got some feedback right away from the consumer. It was a new concept for us as a company, and we wanted to cater that to the U.S. market when we came over from Europe. But the U.S. consumers' thought of a grocery store didn't reflect upon what we delivered. So we immediately changed and started a second prototype, which we've unlisted up and down the East Coast. The one in Lansdale is a retrofit of an existing, or what was an existing Acme box, so that's a little bit different as well. Our first prototype store in the greater Philadelphia area was in Folsom, just south of Philadelphia, and that was one of our standard or older prototypes. We then realized that shifting the size of the prototype down a little bit was more sufficient and efficient for the customers shopping in our stores. And then we went through that phase, and then this is our brand new one that's coming out. We don't have one built yet. The prototype is still in design. So this will be, if we move forward, will be one of the first. Actually, I believe it will be the first in Pennsylvania of this variety.
And this
But
is based on the research and market feedback you received, that the 31,000 square foot was the best target size, and that this look and appearance was something that was attractive to
correct.
customers.
It directly correlates to the new kind of design of commercial buildings that are kind of influencing the market nowadays, with different shades and different heights throughout the building concept. So we've actually upgraded our facade package pretty hefty over the last year or so.
But it does kind of, is kind of similar to the Aldi type of a program, building.
Yep.
The way they have their setup.
Yep, it's about 10,000 square feet bigger. We have, Aldi traditionally has about 15,000 items, or 1,500 items, I'm sorry. We're actually closer to 3,000 at this point. So we're basically double that of an Aldi. But again, we have a little bit of a different concept that we're able to create in Europe because of our buying power. That we have full gluten-free lines, we have full organic lines throughout the entire store. So the concept is like an Aldi, but the interior and the product that we transcend is more of a Trader Joe's Whole Foods combination.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
That's an overview of the presentation, Mr. Chairman. We have received the township consultant review letters, and given the prior submission sketch plan work we did and feedback that we received from township consultants, the letters are very thin. There are no issues in the letters whatsoever. They are all a will comply with one exception that we want to discuss with you. And we'd like to go through those letters if we can with you tonight.
Well, actually, we have gone through the letter. We're going to look at your waiver request and that particular issue that you're talking about.
Okay. Would you like me to proceed with that?
Yes, Rob, you can go write down your waiver request.
Sure. So the waivers requested are I'm going to go through the Gilmore letter. They're all on page 2. Would you like me to review each of those with you?
Well, actually, you've provided a waiver request list
Okay.
that kind of answers each one of the questions,
Yes. Let me pull that up.
and that's what the commission has, so.
Yep. Got it right here. Okay. The following waivers are requested for the project. Section 16E requires storm sewers must be able to convey.
Rob,
Yes.
I'm sorry, Rob, so if you use the whole number, please?
Sure. 173-16E.
Thank you.
This section requires storm sewers must be able to convey post-development runoff from a 100-year design storm without surcharging inlets where appropriate. The applicant requests a waiver to provide a conveyance system compliant with a 50-year design storm due to existing groundwater elevation. Why don't, Chris, you come up here and we can give a more detailed reason or answer any questions concerning that. the reason why, given existing groundwater, you can design to 50 year as opposed to 100-year.
Yeah, so we basically can't make the pipes, sorry about that, any deeper. Therefore, we can run all of the storm sewers to a 50-year storm. Then the water does not surcharge out of the system onto the parking lot.
Okay, thank you.
Number 2, 177-41F. This section requires no less than 15 feet of open space shall be provided between curb line of any uncovered parking area and the outside wall of the nearest building. The applicant requests a partial waiver to permit parking within this 15-foot open space area in the front of the building only. Given the nature of the proposed use, a grocery store, allowing ADA and front of building parking spaces closer to the building will make it easier for those customers to get their groceries from the building to their vehicles.
That is correct.
And can we put the site plan back up and you
So
can...
let me suggest, Rob, just read the list and the response. If we have questions, we'll ask.
You'll ask? Okay.
Fair enough. 177-41M. This section requires that no less than a 5-foot radius shall be permitted for all curb lines in all parking areas. The applicant requests a partial waiver to allow radii of 3 to 5 feet for internal landscape islands in order to design the parking lot for the grocery store in the most efficient manner. Section 177-41Q. This section requires parking lot trees, 2 trees for every 10 parking spaces. The applicant requests a partial waiver from this requirement for Lot 1 only, as this is an existing nonconformity, and to provide the required trees would require a redevelopment of Lot 1 parking lot. Lot 2, where the grocery store is proposed, will comply with this requirement. 177-51A1C1. This section requires street trees, large street trees planted 50 feet on center, or medium street trees 40 feet on center, or small street trees 25 feet on center. The applicant requests a partial waiver from the requirement for Lot 1 only, as this is an existing nonconformity. Lot 2, where the grocery store is being provided, will comply with this requirement. Section 177-51B2A. This section requires buffer yards. It states that the buffer yard shall be measured from the property line or the near street line where a street serves as the property line. It is noted that the plan does not show the required Type C buffer yard between Lot 1 and the neighboring residential uses. The applicant requests a partial waiver from the requirement for Lot 1 only, as this is an existing nonconformity. Lot 2, where the grocery store is proposed, will comply with this requirement. Sections 177-91A1 and 177-92A1. This section requires the plans shall be drawn at a scale of 1 inch equals 50 feet or 1 inch equals 100 feet. The applicant requests a waiver from scale requirements outlined in this ordinance. The scale provided is less than the 1 inch equals 50 feet and provides greater clarity. Section 177-91C3 and 177-92C3. This section requires the location, names, and widths of streets, the location and names of railroads, the location of sanitary sewers, storm drains, water mains, culverts, petroleum or petroleum product lines, gas lines, electric and telephone lines, fire hydrants, and other utilities or significant man-made features on or within 200 feet of any part of the track. The applicant requests a partial waiver from this requirement and acceptance of an aerial image on the cover sheet for elements outside of the survey. And finally, Section 177-91C6 and 177-92C6. This section requires contours at 2 to 5 foot intervals. The applicant requests a partial waiver and acceptance of contours at 1 foot intervals, which provides greater detail than 2 feet and 5 feet contours.
Oh, thank you, Rob.
Thank you.
commission, do you have any questions? Okay. Kurt, do you have any questions?
Not on that. There was a comment on, was it on one of the waivers you wanted to discuss, or on one of the review comments?
Yes, there's just one review comment. Both letters are full, will comply. There was one comment contained in the Pannoni letter that had reference about extending the sidewalk on New Falls Road off-site to, is that Holly or Ketson down the end there? Ketson Drive. So if we can show, where's the chairman's highlighter?
Pointers up there. There you go.
There you go. So we're running the sidewalk on the frontage of our property.
Right here.
And then there was a question about taking it off-site. The problem is that there are physical features there that constrain that. The curb is right up against a deep swale, and there is a swale there. There appears to be some wetlands there, and there's just no room to extend the sidewalk there up to the next roadway. It's an off-site request. Again, if it was flat, clean ground, we would most likely work with the township and accommodate them, but it's physical constraints there that would require a whole host of significant and substantial improvements to extend that sidewalk. All the remaining comments in the Pannoni letter, like the Gilmore letter, are full will comply.
So Rob, the purpose for that particular request for the pedestrian connectivity to be provided between the site and Holly Drive and Keston Drive, if you want to point your highlight where that is. Okay.
This is Keston right here.
Okay, so would the applicant consider creating another pedestrian connectivity line if you take your pointer and run it up in front of the store or behind the store? Somewhere in that area along that strip where you could run a connectivity so from that development behind it right into the store?
Yeah, those are private residents back there.
So that's all private property?
Yes, correct.
And there's
Yes.
a fence there too that we're respecting at the back end of the 20 feet that we're providing for the residents.
Okay,
That runs along here.
thank you very much.
Yep.
Kurt, do you have anything else? Kurt, do you have anything else?
Well, again, this is a comment, made by the traffic engineer, and, I personally in our office hasn't analyzed this to have a lot of information prepared for this evening, but I'm just speaking with Bob here, and it's our understanding that property is owned by the township. Oops, sorry about that. And it extends back to the homes. So, and I see the drop off behind the curb. Correct. And plantings. I can't say they're wetlands or not without a delineation. I don't know if it's been delineated to conclude whether or not they're wetlands. And I haven't walked the site, but I was wondering if there's room behind.
You can see even in this aerial, all of the water drains to a point right here. There's a head wall, and then it comes down to right here. All of this.
Can the sidewalk be behind the swale on township property? And can it connect to the Lidl? Yeah.
Yeah,
that
back
grass.
in here.
That's the wetlands and
That's
the swale.
that's all.
Wet area.
This is all a depressed
Looks like it's
area.
mowed currently.
Yeah,
The
I know.
wetlands are right up against,
They're
I'm
right
assuming
in
what you're referring to as
here.
wetlands are what's in the swale up against the curb. I'm wondering if
Yes.
there's room behind it.
I don't know. I think this whole, what I was gonna say is this area comes down through here. This is a head wall, almost like 3 head walls right here.
Right.
That kind of come to a point, and then I believe the drainage comes across here and then goes down. Therefore, if this thing ever got filled up, you know, this whole area is a low-lying area that would get filled up with water.
It's hard to tell without walking it. And I don't know when you get closer to your property line, what occurs. It looks like it might have some room. I mean, the grade comes back up pretty significantly.
Yeah, we actually we met out there before we came out here, and then as you, right at this point here, that's where the head wall is.
But what about up closer to your
Up
grade?
here?
Yes. Looks like there might be a clear shot that could make its way through.
That, I'm not sure about that.
I think your microphone.
Yeah, there's a large drainage swale.
I'm suggesting stay out of the swale behind.
Yeah, but you have to cross it. I think it comes right back behind there. You have to get across it somehow.
You think it wraps up behind, so you need some kind of bridge or boardwalk or something.
Here, John, take the microphone. Go ahead.
So we as a team walked out there this evening, and as Mr. Riggle was pointing out, I'm John McKenna, representative of the applicant.
Thank you, John.
As Mr. Riggle pointed out, there's a head wall here. It is draining this way. It's just a few feet in from the curb line all along, and it is filled with water currently. I would say on average it was probably at least 4 foot wide, Chris, and it extends the whole length. The issue is down here then, it widens and the area becomes larger, and Mr. Gunluck stated that he also thinks there may be some wetlands associated within here. So I think the problem really is this general area in here, but as the engineer pointed out, theoretically you could put a sidewalk up along here in that mowed area. I don't know who owns that property. Is this all township property?
Yes, it is.
Up along here you could, but then the problem arises down here, and at this point it may become cost prohibitive.
So other than that one issue, Mr. Chairman, everything else is a will comply in the letters. There is, I just want to bring to your attention, if I can, we just received this morning the Bucks County Planning Commission letter, and all of those items as well as a will comply. They did note a de minimis variance that they believe is necessary from section 177-41. And that section requires a 10-foot wide raised landscape island. 3 of our islands range from somewhere between 8 to 10 feet. So they hit 10 feet at some point, but given the existing shape of the property, it does narrow down to 8 feet. But I believe it's only 3 of the islands, Chris, so it's a partial technical waiver for somewhere between 0 and 2 feet. And can you show them the islands there?
Yeah, I believe it's this island, it's these 4 islands.
Okay, so they range from 8 to 10. They're not the full 10, so that would be an additional partial waiver. All the other items in the Bucks County letter, such as looking to add some additional shrubs and ground cover, and looking to add potentially a bench, and all that we're going to continue to work on with township staff and incorporate into the plans. But they're all will comply, and clients are anxious to move forward on this site, particularly in these times, to open the market here for the community.
Thank you, Rob. Bob, do you have anything?
No, John, nothing.
Thank you. Do I have any questions from the audience? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
I'm gonna make a motion to recommend the council approval for preliminary and final subdivision / land development in order to construct a grocery store on the property located at 7843 New Falls Road, Levittown, tax parcels number 5-46-1, number 5-46-2-5, and number 5-46-2-1 in the C Commercial Zone District of Bristol Township. I want to include in the motion, but we've got a few different letters that you guys have referenced. In the Gilmore letter, everything is a will comply,
Yes.
and with the exception of the waivers that were requested. We have, that letter is dated November 11th, 2020. And we have a letter from Pannoni Associates dated November 9th, 2020. And everything in that letter is a will comply, except for item number 3, which is pertaining to sidewalks extending down to Keston Road. And there's a third letter, which I don't have, that Bucks County letter.
Bucks County Planning Commission letter that came out today, November 18th, and that's a will comply, and they do raise the need for the additional technical variance to section
So everything is will
177.
comply except for the exception of there's a number for that, correct? Is
The
there-
waiver.
The waiver number?
Yes.
And we support that partial waiver request.
Okay, okay. All right, so that's good. I think that covers everything. I think I missed something, let me know.
You understand the motion?
Yes.
Okay. I have a motion, do I have a second?
I'll second that.
It's been moved and second. Any comments or questions on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. Good luck, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Happy Thanksgiving, be safe out there.
Yes, you too.
Thank you very much.
Oh, okay, thank you. Yeah, we'll keep them back, then we'll give them to the,
Same for council.
council.
You're welcome, gentlemen.
Here you go, buddy.
You want to keep one, or do you want us just to redistribute them all? Okay, Chris, you'll hold all these, and we'll.
Okay, we are still in a meeting. Having nothing else on our agenda, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second the motion.
Moved in second, comments or questions? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much, and good night, everyone, and happy Thanksgiving. We are still in a meeting. Having nothing else on our agenda, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second the motion.
Moved in second, comments or questions?